Welcome to Working Towards Our Purpose, a podcast that offers a different perspective on what a job can be. For everyone out there that's heard that voice in the back of their head asking for something more, it's time to listen to it. I'm your host, Gino, and join me as I interview people who have decided to work in their own purpose. Together, we will learn, become inspired, and hopefully find our own path towards working in our purpose. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in and listening. Today on the podcast, I talk to Elizabeth Taylor of LaCroix Artistry. She has what I think is a really unique art business where she sells her art to other businesses in the form of custom chalkboards and window paintings, but she also does more traditional art like canvases and apparel, and you can check all that out on her website that I will link in the show notes. We talk about her transitioning into doing her art full-time. We talk about work-life balance and the importance of setting your own schedule. So let's just jump right into our conversation. Thanks for being here. And to start, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what you do in your art and that sort of thing?
Okay. My name is Elizabeth Taylor, and my business is LaCroix Artistry. I've been in business since January of 2021, and my main gig is painting windows, different seasonal things on windows, but I also do canvas art, mural work, chalkboards, and then I do take commissions and stuff as well as throw art shows throughout the year.
Awesome. So you said in 2021 is when you started doing it. Is that when you started like full time on your own doing art?
Yep. I incorporated and got my LLC in January, and I was still working part-time at that point. But then in June of 2021, I left my part-time job and went full-time into art.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what was the part-time work that you were doing and like the jobs that you've done before? Was it something that you didn't, really feel aligned or passionate with, and art was kind of always the goal, or what was that like transition like?
So the transition actually started about, I want to say 5 years ago. I was full-time into logistics. I worked for a logistics company, and I had 2 kids and they were very small, and I was paying for daycare and looking for someone to put them on the bus and someone to get them off the bus and working, 50 to 60 hours a week. And it was just miserable. And so I wanted to do something more meaningful and obviously have more time with my children. And at that point, I hadn't even started doing art. I just quit because I was unhappy. And I figured that I would find a job. And when I quit, then I started just volunteering, and I worked for a couple of nonprofit organizations just doing some fundraising. And then I went part-time into a therapeutic mentorship program. And so I worked with at-risk youth, and that was my part-time job. So it was fulfilling at that point. It was a meaningful job, but it was still only part-time. And then I was also, just painting for myself at home. And then I started to kind of share my art, and then people responded to it. They liked it. And then I started getting commissions, and then eventually it ended up being windows that people were requesting me to do. And then that was kind of it. I got so busy that I couldn't support the part-time job either. So I just ended up having to go full-time, which was good. It's a good problem to have.
For sure. So has art always been something that has been like a big part of your life, or is it more of a recent discovery?
It's more recent. When I was a kid, I used to draw a lot, and I used to like make clothes and things like that. I was creative, but I really took a break away from art and, went to college. I got a degree in business management, and then just started working full time and tried that route. And it just wasn't fulfilling. And then really it kind of started as just, like I said, like some therapy for me at home, just like painting for fun. And then it kind of developed into a passion and something that's very fulfilling now.
That's interesting. Do you think it was maybe you got away from it because it was, thinking to yourself like, oh, I have to pick a quote unquote real job to go to college and do all this sort of thing? Do you think that was maybe the reason why you stepped away from it for a little bit, or?
Definitely. I didn't think that, and my husband reminds me of this all the time, that when I first met him, and I guess he had asked what I wanted to be. And I told him that like when I was young, I really wanted to, draw and be an artist, be an architect. But then as far as like the art was concerned, I was like, yeah, but you just can't make money doing art. So, I went a different path to try to make money and do it that way.
Mm.
So I definitely think that took me away from that avenue. But I'm definitely happier now being an artist and being able to create and call that a job.
Yeah, that's I think interesting how the I guess social narratives like tell you that you can't do this or you can do this because I kind of had a similar thing. I remember like when I was going to college, I first never thought I wanted to go to college, but then the closer it got, I was like, well, what else am I going to do? I guess I have to do that.
Mhm.
So I went that path, and then I remember as I was like picking my major, there was I've always been into music, and there was a major that was audio engineering, and like I really wanted to do that, but I picked mechanical engineering because that one seemed, I guess, like the smarter decision. You get a job that you can actually make money in and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's interesting, like the things that sway us, and you know, coming back and maybe realizing that it wasn't such a bad idea, or maybe you can do stuff to make money. But yeah, interesting. So, can you talk about like the range of products that you have? And you said like window art is something that you found that people, are gravitating to and that sort of thing. What's it like to have like products that you find that the market needs versus like the products that you would want to do and maybe the market doesn't need it? Like, what's the balance between that?
Um, I mean, I would say because I am a business and this is my full-time job, I would say probably between 80 and 90% is marketed towards creating for other people. And then I would say probably 10 to 20% is reserved for creating for myself. When people think of not people, but when I used to think about like an artist, there's so many people who are artists. And then they think, okay, I just have to maybe make a couple paintings, sell them for thousands and thousands of dollars, da 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 da. But that's very tough to do
Mhm.
for a seasoned artist and definitely for like a beginner artist to kind of come in and be like, here's my stuff and this is what the value is. But finding ways for businesses to work art into their budget just was much easier. Things like chalkboards or seasonal paintings on windows, like those are things that benefit a business. And so kind of like marketing it towards them or painting what they want on their business to kind of help them with what they're doing. That was how I was making money. So that's what I've been doing to kind of keep myself going. And then did I answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. I guess
Okay.
what what I'm kind of getting at is because I know at least for myself, like when I started in business and stuff, there was like things in my head that I thought that people would want,
Mhm.
and like I did that, and then realized that like okay, I guess people don't really want this, or maybe they don't see it that way, or you're not talking the same language, and then
Right.
realizing like oh, okay, well maybe I need to listen to like what they actually want, and then see how I can help them in that
Yeah.
confine. So I think that as an artist, that's a smart way to be able to think about it in that way. Because I think, like you said, a lot of artists, maybe sometimes don't think of it in the business perspective and like,
Right.
how can I keep myself going so that I can also still do the art that I want to do?
Right.
So I think that that definitely separates you from a lot of artists out there. And what do you think the like business mindset or way of thinking is influenced by?
Well, my degree is in business management. And so I've always had like a business mind and I've always just been very good with numbers and just kind of budgeting and,
Mm.
you know, invoicing and stuff like that. So it really was just as I was starting out and it was slow enough, just kind of setting up the processes and making sure that I was tracking everything and that I was setting goals and kind of knowing those things going into it.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting because I think sometimes people think like you're either right or left brained and you're either creative or you like math and that sort of thing. So it's interesting to say that you kind of have both. And I kind of feel in a way that I'm like that too because I went to school for mechanical engineering and did that path. So I have a very like logical mindset, but I also like being creative too. So I think merging the two is helpful in, creating a successful business.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
What do you think about like the whole idea of like either waiting for inspiration as an artist or like showing up every single day even if you're not inspired and doing work anyways? Like where do you lean on that?
I create every day. I touch my craft every day, even if it's bad art, even if it's something that I'm going to throw away. I strongly believe that if this is what you want to do, if you want to be an artist, if you want to make money off of your art, then you have to touch it every day. You have to promote yourself every day, and you have to be consistent so that people remember you and that people know you're out there, in a way that when an opportunity comes across their desk or in front of them, they're thinking of you and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I do know someone who does that. Or, somebody said something one time about windows and that would kind of be cute, or, they get a new chalkboard and then, they think of me. So you have to be consistent, show people what you can do and just stay in people's minds.
Mm, definitely. So you said something about like promoting yourself. What is it that you do? Because I imagine that you work alone in your business.
Yeah. Yep.
So what do you do for like, promoting yourself, and then as far as like building community or finding community? Because I know like I work for myself too, and sometimes it can get very lonely and like you get stuck in your head, and meeting people and talking to other people who have businesses is helpful for me to kind of get out of my own head and think of new solutions. So what are things that you do to be able to communicate with other people?
So my number one thing is like when I'm working or when I'm painting on windows, taking the time to talk to the people that want to talk to me. Sometimes it's hard because you're creating and people don't think that like, people are like, oh yeah, she's just creating. I'll just go talk. But it is like, it's an interruption and it's an interruption in your creative process, while your paint is drying and you should have been blending. But I've learned to definitely just stop and take the time to talk to the people that want to talk to me because 90% of my business is coming from meeting people while I'm working. Also, just signing off and putting my name on my work, like my Instagram handle and stuff. I've gotten a lot of people from them. I have a website that I have a lot of my work on. So I try to stay active on that. And then obviously just the social media, Instagram, Facebook, throwing events. And then just where I met you was my first networking event. So definitely trying to get out and talk to people and practice doing that because that is definitely an area that I lack is kind of
Mhm.
being able to talk about my business and kind of like other people's businesses and feel knowledgeable enough to have conversations with people when I don't know a lot about
Mm.
everything.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's definitely something I've struggled with too, and kind of like tried to change my attitude about, because I think a lot of times you try to like show up as like, oh, this is my business and I know everything about it, and like,
Mhm.
I'm a professional. But I think a lot of times if you could be vulnerable and be like, well, I'm trying to do this, or like I want to do this, but this is what
Yep.
I'm doing now, like that then is when you can get like helpful advice from people, and that act of being vulnerable can be beneficial for yourself.
Yeah.
So something I try to do. Again, being like a introverted type of person, it's not always the thing that you want to do, but if you can
Right.
like kind of force yourself to do it, it usually ends up being very helpful.
Yeah. And just kind of meeting people in person, is not that common anymore, especially like after everything that happened over the past couple years. And then just like with social media, I feel like it's a lot easier for people just to connect digitally. But, meeting people in person and connecting on that level, I think is far more valuable than, the digital realm.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So, what do you do as far as like continuing to learn, whether it's about business or about art? Do you do anything to, learn different business techniques or anything like that?
No, experience, failures.
Hmm.
Um, I definitely pay attention to things that work and pay far more attention to things that don't work, as far as creating and relationships and business tactics. I feel like we learn a lot when we're uncomfortable and, in an awkward situation that you don't want to ever be in again. So I would say that's experience is most of my learning. I've always like set goals for myself. And so this year I did set a goal that I was going to, do more self-help books and kind of learn about networking and talking to people. So I've just kind of been doing a lot of like those books, just like think the one that I'm reading now is The Gifts of Imperfection. And so, just like books like that basically they're saying like, okay, well, whatever you're doing, it is enough. But like what you were saying, like you have to be able to be vulnerable and open and show that to people to have a connection and a sense of being and that type of
Mhm.
stuff.
Definitely, yeah. I think you can also probably, at least me, lean too much into like the self-help and reading, like,
Mhm.
the theoretical versus the practical, right? Like I read tons of books and stuff like that, but if you don't ever implement it, then it's not
Right,
really helpful. So I think
right.
what you said about learning by doing is probably like 90% of it.
Yeah,
It's good to have like knowledge of other people's ways of thinking, but I think you really only learn like when you mess up, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to do that again.
right. Like,
So,
yeah, that was 10 hours of my life that,
mhm,
I'm not gonna get back so yeah, but it is nice to kind of pair the two to have life experiences and maybe not have been able to articulate in a way that like a writer can. And then like, you connect with what they're saying in the book, like, oh, okay, yeah, that is kind of what happened to me here. And then you have words for your experiences as well.
mhm. That definitely helps. So, can you define like what success means for you? Because I know, like, especially nowadays, there's so many different meanings for success, and I think in a past life it was just like money and your title and that sort of thing. So, what does success mean for you?
Success is being in complete control of my schedule and controlling who I work with and, what situations I put myself in. And so if I can, obviously I have bills, I have kids. So if I can pay my bills and keep control of my schedule, I feel like I'm successful. That really honestly is it for me. I want to own my time and I don't ever want to have to work with somebody that I don't want to work with, or do something that I'm against doing. I feel like in the corporate world we're forced into cultures and ways of doing business that don't align with who we are. So I guess, being authentic and being able to live a life that you align with are all measures of success for me. So yeah, if that makes
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that is a constant theme that we've kind of hit on a couple times is like the balance, the work life balance part of things. And I know like when I quit my 9 to 5, it was like I was carrying this like huge anchor that I was now not carrying. And I was like, wow, everything else, all other aspects of my life seem easier now that I don't have to like drag that with me.
right.
So yeah, that's something that I also find is significantly important, like what you do with your time and how you spend your time. And it's the only thing you can't like buy, right? Like you can't
Right.
buy more time. So and valuing that. What do you think that came from for you, like being able to appreciate that? Because I know for me, like it started a long time ago. When I first graduated college, I like did the whole backpacking Europe thing. And on that trip, I like had, I guess, like many epiphanies of like, this is awesome. Like, why can't we always do this? Or why can't life be more like this versus like the 9 to 5 all the time
Mhm.
and you get 2 weeks off? Was there like a triggering point for you that made you appreciate the time versus the money?
Yeah, kids, number 1, that was, the hardest part. So before I had kids and, it was just me, and I would work 60 hours. I would work. I had like 2 jobs. I was going to school, I would work, save money. But then like, your kids are young and you're missing out on so much time with them. And I had 2 young boys and I worked at like my day started at 6 and I'd go till 3:30 and then we come home and we do dinner, bath, and bed. So it's like you spent like 4 hours a day with your kids. And then there was the final moment for me, which actually made me quit my job, was my son. I think he was like a year and a half because he was running. So he was like a year and a half, maybe 2. And he was at daycare around the corner from my job and he fell into the corner of a table and cracked his head open. And so I
Mm,
had to leave, right? You got to leave. I had to take my kid to the hospital. They had to stitch his face up. And I came back the next day. Like I didn't even take any time off, just half a day. And they had
mm,
taken a full vacation day. out of my vacation time. And I was like, what? Like, I wasn't on vacation. Like, plus I'm salary and I was here yesterday, so like, it was just so bizarre that I was like, that's it. I quit. And I never looked back, because it was just seemed so crazy to me that I would work for a company that like that was how they treated people. And that was not just how they treated me, it was how they treated like everybody, like, and it was stupid. Like, like it was just so upsetting that they just had absolutely zero compassion for anything other than just being there, setting an example and whatever. So that was it.
Yeah. That story is definitely very reminiscent of my experience in the 9 to 5 world or corporate world, and just the lack of like connection and human aspect of the job. Yeah. Like it seems like that was always just so confusing to me. It was always just do the task, and then you're some part of this machine, and nobody really like connects as humans or like has empathy or anything like that. It's definitely something I am appreciative to not have to do or interact with anymore.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And I feel like organizations, they are getting better, or at least like, from the outside looking in, it does look like some corporations are trying a little harder, especially like with the allowing people to work from home and, that type of thing. But still, like, if you can't treat people like people, just people shouldn't work there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, as we're coming to the end of our time, a couple more questions for you. What advice would you have for somebody who maybe was stuck in a job that they didn't like and they needed like that extra push to make a change in their life for the better?
One thing I always like told myself is like, after I quit, I mean, it was scary. It's definitely scary, but you're going to fail, but make sure you fail forward. You're going to fall down, you're going to have bumps in the road, but you just always just kind of keep going, try it out. You're never going to know if you don't try. And, people are like, well, let me just get this, paid off, or get this down there, but there's always going to be something else that's going to keep you from doing it. So, if you have a good plan, or if you, have a dream that you absolutely at least want to try to accomplish, I mean, you just got to try it. You just got to go for it. If it doesn't work, you have to be able to, be humble enough to say that didn't work, and either try it a different way or you go back to what you were doing, but at least that you tried.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think like being able to pivot is definitely helpful. And like you said, failing and then just trying it again. And okay, that didn't work. Well, let me try this thing, or let me try that thing. That's definitely been my experience ever since I've quit. I think I've like pivoted my business like 100 times, but I think constantly being able to do that is one of the keys to not giving up, and not giving up is the only thing, you can do. Right.
Right. Yep.
So for people that want to support your work or check out your work, where's the place to find you?
I'm on Instagram mostly, and that's at LaCroix Artistry, which is LACROIX Artistry, or I have a website, which is LaCroixArtistry.com.
Awesome. And I'll share the links for that so people can find it. And thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your story.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in and listening to Working Towards Our Purpose. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe for more episodes.